Hello, fellow wargamers and history buffs. This is Eric, and I am joined today for a special game design interview with two gentlemen, and I will introduce them here right now. So, joining us is Lembit Tover. I presume I got that right. That sounds like a good
That's
Norwegian
exactly it.
name. There we go. And
It's
Steve Rawlings. And we are going to be chatting about La Bataille de Kulm, which is going to be published by Against the Odds magazine. And so, if anybody is tuning in out there, if you've got questions or comments, or you just want to let us know where you are tuning in from, go ahead and post something in the comment section, and we will read it out there to everybody. So let's get started first. So, Lembit, tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been playing war games?
well, I've been playing war games since 1967 when I bought my first war game, Afrika Korps from Avalon Hill. My father was quite into history, and he sort of encouraged me to study things. And then I got into the gaming because I thought a game history, wow. And so then I carried on, and I've been gaming ever since then.
Cool. Very good. And Steve, what about you?
Let's see. I guess the year was 1971. A friend of mine at the time had gotten a copy of Panzer Blitz for Christmas, and he invited me over to play it, and I was hooked. We played with the tanks, we played with the infantry, and really beat the game into the ground. The one thing we couldn't figure out is how to put the infantry in the half tracks. We kept thinking it was something
Oh,
physical as opposed to merely stacking them.
right, right. Well, very good. And then I presume that did you play mostly Avalon Hill games back then, or a little bit of Avalon Hill, and then you know uh, SPI games? What were some of your favorites?
Uh, my friend progressed on to get a subscription to S&T, so that was the pretty much
Hmm.
how I was introduced to gaming from then. We really didn't have many of the other Avalon Hill classics, although I did. I think I saved up $5 or $7 to get Richthofen's War when that came out. Those were the
Yeah, I
days.
I played that a lot too. Yes. So, well, cool. And then what about you, Limbit? What were some of the favorite games that you played back in your wild, misspent youth?
Well, I used to play quite a bit on the S&Ts because I did get a subscription to the magazine, and then well, like for instance, the Labataille system. It was the early '70s when I first encountered the very first copy of Labataille when and we were playing it at the Games Club, and I've liked it ever since.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can say I've enjoyed it ever since I started playing it as well. So good. And was there any particular time period that you guys liked a lot when you were playing games? Second World War, American Civil War, Napoleonics.
For myself, I liked World War II and Napoleonics.
Okay. All right. And what about you, Steve?
I was very much a World War II man, but I also liked air games of any kind.
Ah, okay. So Richthofen's War. Let's see what else was there. Luftwaffe. There were a few others that
Air
were
Force
sort
and
of
Dauntless when they
Air
came
Force.
out.
Yep, yep, yep,
Yep.
yep. Okay. Classic stuff. Well, good. Now, Lembit, how did you get involved then in game design or becoming a game designer or developer?
Well, it was a passion that I always wanted to do, and so one of my buddies with another company, he asked me to develop a game for him, and I said okay, so I did, and that worked out well. And then I believe that I was recommended on to Steve to become a developer for Against the Odds, and so I started to develop games for Against the Odds as the primary developer. As far as design is concerned, that was back in the '70s when I didn't like the way certain games were, and I decided that I was going to change it around and make it my own. And so I
Okay.
used to do that. So, like my Hastings design is based originally from the 1066 from TSR. Okay, And so I didn't like it, and I said, "This has got to change." So that's what I did.
Okay, cool. That I've talked with some other game designers on the channel before, and that is not an uncommon experience where they've got a particular game, they like it, and they're like, "Huh, can we do this better?" In fact, I think when I'd interviewed Dennis Spohr and Jim Soto from La Bataille, they'd said
Yep.
something similar. There was some game that they got, maybe it was from a magazine game, and they played it a lot, and they're like, okay, this is good, but we can make it better.
Yep.
And so that seems to be a common theme out there. Let's see, we've got about 11 people watching so far, and let's see here. We've got Perry is saying hello, Eric, Lembit, and Steve, looking forward to Kulm. So very good. Let's see, we have the Grim Harbinger sending his greetings, and Perry is letting us know he's in beautiful Northern California. So it's a little chilly up there. And no, you can't all be in Southern California. Come on, Perry. What you doing? Oh, we've got our favorite here, William Arens from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. He says, it's nice to see you, Steve. So, yeah, William, I mean, he's in Kitchener. How far is Kitchener from you?
It's
Lembit?
about 25 miles, 30 miles.
25 miles.
Not very far.
Not very far. Okay.
Nope.
So now, do you measure things in miles, or by how long it takes the dog team to take your sled across there, or not?
Yeah, the dog team, okay?
The dog team. There you go. The dog team. There we go. Let's see. Grim Harbinger says, as someone who has never played La Bataille but loves and knows a lot about Napoleonic Wars, it's very interesting from my point of view. Well, hopefully we will have a chance to educate you some more and get you to get off your butt and actually play a La Bataille game. And it sounds like this one might be a good option for you. So let's go here. We have one more person. Tim Zales is saying, hello, all. Hello, Tim. Thanks for tuning in. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in either design or publishing in the wargame universe. What's your backstory there?
Oh my first published game was in 1977. I published it under a pseudonym because I was scared that people would look me up or something. But my background has been more in development and management, publishing the games as opposed to designing. As I jokingly told you pre-interview, I've always been more of a Carnot-like figure rather than a Napoleon. So I'm the organizer of victory, making things happen.
There you go.
To actually being the creative genius that other people are.
Okay. Well, that's good. Everyone needs their Carnot. They need somebody there to make sure it all happens. So very good. So tell us a little bit then with Against the Odds magazine. How long have you guys been around?
Let's see. I got the germ of the idea in the year 2000, and I was able to put together the first issue, publish it in April of 2002. So I guess we're coming up on 23 years, or just past 23 years now. We put out about 60 regular issues and another 20 of our larger annual size editions.
Okay, cool. And what got you to think about doing a magazine game as opposed to, say, publishing a larger box games or things like that?
Well, I only had a small garage to start in. When you start doing box games, the space gets taken up rapidly, whereas the magazines get shipped out quickly and they're flat. So, and again, to me, there's more to war gaming than simply the game itself. I'm very much interested in a lot of the background history that goes into campaigns, the economic, social, and cultural forces that shape battles and campaigns the way they do. And having the magazine would allow me to, put articles out that would answer those sorts of questions.
Okay, good. And so you must have a group of folks that help contribute. So obviously Lembit is one of your contributors. And then you have others that are designing games for you and others that are writing articles for the magazine. Is that correct?
Yes. We've had quite a number of contributors, some sadly who are no longer with us. Richard Berg and John Prados both did a number of issues. Mike Ranella and Phil Jelly over in the UK, and I guess the largest contributor has been Paul Rohrbaugh
Okay.
with his designs. So game publishing, like article writing, you have, as I said, 20% of the people do 80% of the product. It's an 80-20 rule.
Right. No, that sounds true. That sounds true. It seems to be true for most activities out there. So, Lembit, getting back with design, you did one on the Battle of Hastings. What are some of the other games that you've designed over the years?
Okay, there's the Marne, which is the World War One battle of where the French actually held up the Germans on the Schlieffen Plan. And then my other design is Riskree, which deals with Operation Brevity, which is the short operation before Battle Axe, in which they wanted to position themselves in a better position, which they did not achieve.
Okay. All right. So you've covered a little bit. Medieval history, First World War, Second World War. And then I know that you'd mentioned that you were involved with the La Bataille de Kulm that Against the Odds magazine put out.
That's
What?
correct. I
Yeah.
was a developer for that, and what I did is, with the help of Marshall Enterprises, we worked out the rules, and I made it more of a instead of a verbal rule set, it was with a like as some people call it, the SPI form, where it was numbered, and therefore you could address individual questions onto a numbered rule.
Okay. So basically taking their standard premier rules, which are um, in a different format, let's put it that way, a little bit
Mhm.
more, as you said, paragraphs instead, and then breaking it down into something that's a little bit more digestible for someone who wants to pick up the game and play it. So,
Exactly. Yep.
okay, cool. And then now for Kulm, is it going to be something similar where it's kind of um, using that same structure of the rules that you had for Vauchamp?
Yes, exactly. The rules for Kulm, of course, are basically the same as Oshant's, except with the adjustments that were required for the Battle of Kulm.
Okay. All right. Well, this brings up an interesting question. We've got a fella here who's asking. Well, let's hit his first question here first. In the KS, that must stand for Kickstarter. You said at the 40,000 stretch goal is magazines. Where did you find the cache of random magazines? So this must be something in the Kickstarter. You have different like uh, perks that people get. Is that what he's referring to there, Steve?
Yes, yes. The particular item in this case is the very last issue of Napoleon magazine, which in the early 2000s,
Ah,
a spiffy Napoleonic era, also French Revolution era magazine, which had eye-catching graphics and very good writing. Uh, my current developer has a stash of them in his basement that are all mint,
oh
still
my
in their sealed
goodness.
boxes, and we feel we have enough to cover the potential Kickstarter audience with a freebie copy.
Okay, very cool. I think I had gotten, well, maybe a couple years ago, a CD or DVD, whatever it is, one of those discs that had a whole bunch of basically, I think all the copies of Napoleon magazine that had been issued, all digital. So I every now and again, if I'm feeling in the mood, I will go through and look through that. I can't remember where I bought it from or if it came with something that I'd ordered. But yes, that's a fantastic magazine. So that's the magazine that they're getting. They're not getting old copies of Against the Odds magazine that you couldn't get rid of, that you're just randomly going to pack and send out. They're getting this nice Napoleon magazine, it sounds like.
Yes, it's thematically related. If you like
Yes.
Napoleon, you'll enjoy the issue.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that. So then Dan has another question. This one seems to fit then with what Lembit was talking about. Second question: was the game designed to be played with the rules that come with it, or can you use the fifth edition rules?
Okay, you can use the fifth edition rules, but you'll have to do similar what to Nigel does for the games. Nigel Berry, he's with Line Yank Games, but you'll have to make adjustments because fifth edition is a system with command in it, and I have designed the game without the command in it, just the normal Premiere style of command.
Right, right. So, Danny, yeah, the usual Premiere rules. There's no command control. You basically have that time limit where you've got 10 minutes to move your units, and that kind of acts as a mechanism to simulate some sort of distress in the mind of the commander. And then Nigel normally posts on labatai.us ways where he converts the games and then has that command overlay so you can play it with 5th edition, Marie Louise, or Regs 30. And so that's where you'd want to go after this is published. And Nigel has a chance to go through there and say, okay, Von Damme gets a command point for this, and this allied leader gets a command point for that. And so that's where you would then find that information to go. So cool. Well, then let's talk a little bit about how and you guys decided to land on doing La Bataille de Kulm. Why did you decide to do the Battle of Kulm?
Well, I'll start off. Beauchamps was a streaming success. It sold very well. It commands a nice premium on the aftermarket nowadays, and people constantly ask, are you going to reprint it one day? So I was looking about for another small Napoleonic battle that would fit inside the magazine. And I had just read a very interesting article on the web about the Battle of Kulm. And I approached Lembit and said, you've got all the chops from Beauchamps to do a design. Would you like to consider picking up Kulm? And then he ran with the idea.
Okay. Yep. Well, good. So it sounds like one of the reasons why it might have fit it's because it's a smaller battle. So it's going to fit kind of with the magazine. You're not going to have 5,000 charts and a whole bunch of counter sheets and things like that. Is that the general consideration, Steve, when you're trying to put together or pick a battle for something like this?
Well, we look for, as I said, things that fit within the parameter of the magazines. Kulm, just like Beauchamps, has limited forces on each side. The battlefield fits on a standard 22 by 34 map. We're thinking of 1.5 counter sheets will encompass all the forces. So it's a little bigger than a normal issue. But again, the idea is that it's an introduction to the system. You can really learn something from playing the game, deciding if you want to progress on with either other Clash of Arms titles or Martial Enterprises as well. So from our perspective, it's an intro to the system on a pretty gripping battle. And of course, it fits in with our Against the Odds theme tremendously.
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing that I liked with Beauchamp, and I think I did a video on it at a number of years ago, talking about how it was a really very nice intro to the game system. It was a small enough scale. The rules were modified to make them a little simpler, a little bit more streamlined, and as a result, I think it was one of the better ones out there for you to get somebody into the game system. Otherwise, you look at some of these games and maps, and while they're beautiful, it's just a little overwhelming. It was like, or the cost is overwhelming too. So this looks like it might be a good fit for somebody if you're looking to get them into the La Bataille. Lembit, yep. Why did you guys decide to go with the La Bataille as opposed to maybe a different type of rule system for this game?
To me, it would be because of Beauchamps. Okay, because we had the success with Beauchamps, I also personally really like the La Bataille game system. And so I was very comfortable in going with that type of a design where I'm using the rules of La Bataille.
Okay. Well, yeah, and it's been around for 50 years, so it's why reinvent the wheel, I guess.
The old
Exactly.
military maxim applies: reinforce success.
Very good, very good. Hey, I do have a question though. I mean, with Kulm, is how much of a battle is there? I mean, is it a case where Van Damme has a chance? What are the? I mean, there's lots of Napoleonic battles out of there, and there's many that have been done. And sometimes you're like, why did we make this a game? Because it's almost, you're almost doomed before you start. I'm thinking like Wagram, for example, where the Austrians are just terribly outnumbered, and it's just a matter of how much fun you can have being destroyed. Same thing with Jena, So how much of a game is it? I'm not that familiar with the battle. So how do you kind of make it into a game where the French player isn't just going to throw up their hands?
Well, I had to look at. There's 2 days in the battle, and the first day the French are heavily on the offensive against the Russians only. Okay, so I had to set up victory conditions for day one because that's all that was there. In day two, where Beauchamp gets surrounded by the Prussians and Austrians coming on, and he gets captured, I had to set up victory conditions such that the French have a way of winning, and so it's more pressure on the coalition forces to do well. You know,
Okay.
this day two is at a certain point it becomes Beauchamp's, or sorry, not Beauchamp's, but Van Damme's objective to exit his troops from the map.
Okay.
Whereas in day one, he's trying to get off and against the Russians. Day two, he's trying to get away.
Okay. So the French player has got to basically be able to flip from being on the attack in the first day's scenario to being on the defense and actually extricating himself from the battlefield, and not getting captured like what happened historically.
Right.
Okay. Well, that sounds like that would be a little bit of a challenge for any player there.
I think it's interesting. I really enjoyed play testing the game and putting it together. And it was a lot of tense moments, and sometimes the victory came on the first day, sometimes victory came on the second day, and
Okay.
there are scenarios just for the first day, just for the second day, or combining the two.
Okay. Good. So we've got a couple of people have posted some questions. So let's see. Grim Harbinger says here, yeah, Kulm is small given the size of battles in 1813. So you basically just have that one French corps, and
Right.
then how many allies are they up against? Are they up against two allied two allied
Okay.
corps or?
We'll put it this way: there's the Prussians, the Austrians, and the Russians. Okay, so the
Okay.
Russians have more than one corps, but they're very depleted corps that's there. Okay, and the Prussians also coming onto the board on day two are rather hurt as well. The Austrians are only the ones that are at full strength, basically, that can go up against the French.
Okay.
Many of the Allied
Interesting.
troops are recovering from Dresden, where Napoleon gave them a real thrashing. So that's where you're getting your disparity in numbers, why they're setting up already with casualties.
Ah, okay. Let's see here. William asks, are there any similarities between the games A Crowning Glory on Austerlitz and These Brave Fellows on Durenston and the Bataille games of Kulm and Beauchamps? That would have to be a question for you guys. I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
Strategically, they're all against the odds situations.
Okay.
Someone is definitely uh, under pressure from the very start. The game systems, however, are completely different. Crowning Glory was designed by Taibamba, and These Brave Fellows was designed by Andy Nunez. And then the Bataille games, Kulm and Beauchamps, are very similar in terms of concept and scale and rules.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for answering that. Let's see here. We've got another question. This is from Danny. He says, so when you link the games, which rules would you use? One of the stretch goals is combining Dresden with this game. So maybe I think what he's talking about is one of the stretch goals in the Kickstarter was something about if you had like La Bataille de Dresden and you were playing that, and then how that would impact La Bataille de Kulm.
Again, the concept is you would play Dresden straight up using the Dresden rules.
Right.
And then the emphasis there would be the strategic decision is, does Napoleon deploy all of Victor's corps at Dresden, or does he divert elements of it to appear on the Kulm battlefield? So,
okay.
And then once the pieces show up on the Kulm battlefield, they would use the Kulm rules.
Okay. All right. So if you had, so then if you've got Dresden, then you can play that optional outcome because you've got the counters from Dresden that you could then use. You're not sending those counters out with the magazine game or with the Kickstarter.
No. It is, if you own both Dresden and Kulm, you can use the combined rules to play out both games.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So it's more like a way of like, it's more like a rule to do it. So I think what Danny's might be getting at is which rules would you use? I guess if you, obviously, if you're playing La Bataille de Dresden, the 5th edition rules are the ones that come in the box with that. And you could use that, or you could use whatever La Bataille rules you want to. Similarly, then, when you play Kulm, you can either use the rules that come with it, which are more the premier style, which don't have the command control, or you can go to labataille.us and find then the conversion rules that will allow you to use it with 5th edition Marie Louise or Regs 30 that have that command element to it. So I try to tell people this all the time. If you have a particular rule set that you like, stick with it and play it. And there are ways that you can adapt any game, even the ones that were printed back in the 70s, to use whatever modern rule sets you want to. And I don't think the stretch goal sort of rule or mechanism you have for combining it, I don't think it takes into account which rule set you're using, because it sounds like whatever results you have in Dresden, so the Prussians take XYZ number of losses, that's going to affect the setup in Kulm, right? So it doesn't matter how those losses were attributed, whether it was through 5th edition rules or Regs 30 rules. A loss is a loss. Am I understanding that correctly there, Steve?
Yes, the concept is, again, if you play Dresden, you use the Dresden rules. If you play Kulm with the Dresden link, as the pieces come onto the board, they'll be using the Kulm rules. But as you said, if you are a fan of the 5th edition, you can play Kulm with the 5th edition from the very start.
Okay, cool. Let's see here. We've got another viewer. This is Seraphim1211 Cherubin. All right. Somebody is feeling very angelic out there. Says, a very early good morning from Germany. Nice to meet the boys who bring Vauchamps on the table. Any plans for another 1814 battle?
Not at this time, no.
Okay.
One would have to have such a design submitted to even, you know.
There you go. So I think what he's saying, Seraphim, is get out your protractor and start drawing a map and start working on something, and then send your sketches over to Steve, and he'll see what he can do for you there. So
fair enough. I'm partial to crayon.
Crayon. Well, I always tell people, if you want to do something like that, just go ahead and write your postcard and attach it to a Porsche 911 and mail it to me, and I'll be happy to take a look at it there. So, well, cool. So we've talked a little bit about the rules. We've talked a little bit about Vauchamp. It sounds like it's with the scenario, there's a couple of options for people to play. Lembit, from your experience with it, how long did the game usually take? I know when I played Vauchamp, it was a pretty the first scenario was pretty quick. You could usually get through that in about a couple of hours. With Kulm, is it similar, fast playing game, or does it one that might take a longer time to play?
Gameplay is about the same length of time, but you don't have a short scenario like you did in Wuchang. You have day one and day two for the campaign. The campaign, well, day one takes about 4 hours or thereabouts to play. Day two is about 4 hours as well. Where when you combine the two, it's about six hours.
Okay. All right. So not bad. It's the sort of thing they could play one of the day scenarios or the other, on a get together or on an afternoon or an evening. It sounds like, 4 hour stretch. Yeah, no, that's very doable. And that also makes it very approachable for people. It's not something that's going to sit on your dining room table for, 2 months. Like
True.
what happens with a lot of stuff I do. I do play testing for both Marshall Enterprise and Clash of Arms. My wife is like, when are you going to get rid of that? No, no comment. No comment. So cool. Now let's see. We've got another couple of folks here have piped up with stuff here. So, oh, yeah. So Perry asked, and I think we might have already answered this. Which set of La Bataille rules did you start with for Vauchamps?
Premiere.
Yeah, Premier. Yeah. And so
Yep.
this one is going to have the same or very similar rules as were used for Vauchamp. So it's basically a sort of streamlined version of Premier rules.
Yeah.
But as Steve was saying, and as I mentioned as well, there'll be ways that you can play it with any other preferred rules that you got. Danny says thanks. So I guess we answered his question correctly, or as correctly as it needs to be. Let's see. Grim Harbinger has a comment here. Says General Osterman Tolstoy really helped the Russians hold versus Von Damme, allowing von Kleist to arrive and wedge Von Damme between him and Tolstoy, although Tolstoy had been wounded on day one. So it looks like, is that kind of fit with the history that's going on there?
It definitely does, but you got to take into account that he had the good Russian troops with the guards and the grenadiers being there.
Notice that he's on the cover of the issue. That's the general on the cover.
Oh, that's a good one. Let's bring that up here. So we've got, here is the artwork for that. So that is Osterman Tolstoy. Okay. Well, that's a fantastic painting. That looks like me when I was a few years younger than I am now. So, well, except for the hair. Well, and a lot of other things.
You can wear your ironic cross.
I can. Very good. So yeah, so this looks good. I've got a couple other images here that you'd sent with this. So this is the artwork from Vauchamps. So you want to tell us a little bit about this and what we can expect with La Bataille de Kulm.
Well, this basically is the art style that we'll be employing for Kulm. We have this nice graphic from Vauchamps that we show people to give them a good idea of what the various troops will look like between the French and the Russians and the Germans. But this is really just sort of a PR piece to give people an idea of the art map style and the counter style.
Okay, cool. All right, and I think you'd sent me, here's the map. And let's see if I can zoom in here a little bit. Oh, yes. So yeah, so people can kind of see it. It very much fits with similar artwork for Dresden. It looks very much like the style of the map from La Bataille de Dresden from Clash of Arms from, 2016 or so, I think, is when that game came out.
Yes, we hired the same artist.
Okay. Terrific. Well, it looks really nice. Cool. And the map itself, you said, was 22 by 17 approximately?
22 by 34.
By 34. Okay. All right. I'm like,
You're looking at the very east edge of the map in this picture. So
okay.
a lot of the action is taking place to the left.
Okay. Very nice. Good. And then what made Kulm an important spot? It looks like we've got some different uh, roads connecting through here. Is that kind of why it became the flashpoint? Everyone was trying to get along through this way from either escaping from Dresden.
Well, basically, the way I see it is that Napoleon had set Van Dam up there, up this way, to try and have a breakout route for the French if they needed to.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, to give some perspective, Dresden is to the top of the map. Dresden is a good deal off to the top. There's a mountain chain up there.
Okay.
The roads and passes are quite restrictive, so the Allies are retreating away from Dresden, and the French were pursuing. And in essence, imagine the Russians pouring on the board and moving west with the French in hot pursuit. And then on day two, a surprise force of Prussians and Austrians come down the road on top of the French and surround them from both sides.
Ah, okay. All right. Well, nice. Everything looks really lovely. So I'm sure that will be very popular.
And then
Cool.
if you
Let's
want to show the counters off, there's the other graphic with showing some sample counters.
Yeah, let me find that here real quick. Yes, here we go. All right.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
and
some real
these
units from the
yeah. And this very much follows the style of Clash of Arms, their recent publications with the different sort of colored belts and number affiliation, everything else. So if you are playing Dresden and then you come over to this, everything's going to be compatible in that regard. So yeah, it looks really sharp.
Yes, the numbers will all sort of be in the same place, and the values on the back will be in the same place, and so on.
Right. Very nice. Let's see here. So we've got another question here. Perry asks, can I guess I use 5th edition or Premier rules with Beauchamp or Kulm? So yes, you can. The answer is yes, you can. So the game itself will come with a pared down or I don't want to say simplified, but maybe more streamlined version of the Premier rules. Um, I know that with Beauchamp, you didn't have skirmisher cavalry. Will this one have skirmisher cavalry, Lembit?
Yes, it definitely has skirmisher cavalry.
Okay.
Yep, the Russian Guards cavalry.
All right. So that's something that's slightly different from Beauchamp. But otherwise, it sounds like it'll be almost the regular Premier rules then, if that's the case. There won't be much different from
Nope.
what some if people are playing any of the other titles using Premier rules. Let's see here. Grim Harbinger says, "Don't give me evil ideas. Otherwise, I would be given every battle in the Napoleonic Wars." Okay, I'm not sure. Oh, okay. He's going to be designing games for us, perhaps. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what.
He may
Let's
be running with the
see.
crayon idea.
Yeah, the crayon idea, indeed. Yeah, the battle cost Tolstoy his left hand. Did not know that. So it's rough business there. Let's see here. We got Seraphim is writing back. I remember to see a picture of a very early playtesting and was surprised about the low strength points of the Russians. The Russian Guard were present at Dresden, but did not fight. So only March losses. So I think what he's asking for or about here is that with some of the units that were there at Dresden but didn't actually engage in combat, why their values might be lower than what you would expect.
Well, put it this way: I took my research from Knapziger's Order of Battles. and he showed the Russians to be like regiments of 300 men,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, like 300, 200 men, things like that. So uh, I am not fully aware of why they were that small, but that's what they were. There was only that many men there.
Okay. Well, and it could be because they were retreating, people were all spread out or disorganized in some way.
Yep.
So let's see. Seraphin also then asks, um, Prince Eugen or Eugene was heavily engaged on the retreat. Do you consult Nafzinger for the order of battle? So yes, you just answered that question. So
Yep.
Nafzinger is who you're using for that.
Yep.
Okay. And now his next question or comment is there an idea for a scenario for Mortier? He may hear the sounds of the guns and find a turbo button to reach with the young guard to Vendôme.
There is not a scenario right now, but I do know one of my playtesters was thinking about it.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess that would be one that would be similar to the like, there's a lot of times that you can mess around with things sometimes and see what you can do. But that sounds like an interesting option. If you've got the Dresden game, then you could play that option and try to get some elements of the Young Guard there.
Yep.
So cool. All right. So, gentlemen, we've talked a little bit about the game and everything else. Steve, do you want to say anything about how things are going with the um, how people can order the game or get involved with um, you know purchasing it? Tell me how people can find it.
Well, there's a number of ways to find it. It is live on Kickstarter presently. You can search for Kulm. It's a pretty unique name, and it should
Right.
come up that way. The website has a page for Kulm on it. That again, it will take you into the Kickstarter, which will run through December 15th. You can access the Kickstarter via our Facebook page. You can also access the Kickstarter via various announcements and ads that we've been placing around the web. Just click on the banner and you'll be taken right there. If you're shy about trusting Kickstarter, there will be a late pledge window after the Kickstarter formally closes that you can access via the atomagazine.com website.
Okay. And if they decide to go with a Kickstarter as opposed to waiting until the game is actually published, what are some of the perks that they're going to get if they go with Kickstarter? And that wouldn't necessarily be something that's going to be shipping out with the game otherwise.
There are a few perks so far, with more coming. The ones I guess people would notice the most: Kickstarter recipients will get an extra half counter sheet of markers, which always comes in handy. There'll be link rules for, as we just were discussing, Dresden and Kulm together. Um, we will be putting double charts in for Kickstarter recipients. It's always handy for everyone to have their own fire and their own melee chart as opposed to
Okay.
passing it around. Those are just a few of the items, and then looking ahead. For example, we had discussed once the Kickstarter reaches close to 40,000 K, we'll be giving away a free copy of Napoleon magazine inside each Kickstarter edition.
Okay. Well, good. So that sounds like some fun stuff there. Cool. And I will post for anybody who's watching this video afterwards. I'll have a link to the Kickstarter and to Against the Odds magazine's webpage in the description for this video. So you can find that there. So you don't have to look it up necessarily. I'll try to post it there for everybody. So Lembit, tell me a little bit, how have you enjoyed the process of putting together this particular game?
I actually quite enjoyed it because it produced quite a challenge for me to work out the victory conditions. I like the Labatai system, and getting the victory conditions to work and to have uh, both players, both sides, having a chance, to actually produce a win for themselves. Now, as similar to most of the games, there are different levels of victory. Okay, and that then you do a comparison of their levels if they both achieve victory levels, and you decide the game by that.
Okay. Yeah. So that sounds like that would be a challenging is trying to put the victory conditions together. How long have you been working on developing this?
It started 2016, 2017.
Okay. So it's been play tested. It's been proven.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's always important because I know
Yep.
sometimes some of these quote unquote Kickstarter games, they come out, they might look nice, but they haven't necessarily had their tires kicked, or maybe not enough.
So these ones have been kicked.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, cool. Well, cool. Well, gentlemen, before we sign out, before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to share with the folks that are out there watching, either now or in the future?
Well, I'll simply give a shout out to all the participants in our Kickstarter so far. It's quite exceeded expectations, and the funding levels have grown exponentially over just the minimum that we had set. So, again, a shout out to everyone who enjoys Against the Odds magazine and, of course, supporting our Kickstarter.
Very good. Thank you. We've got another last question here, or if anybody who's out there watching has any questions, go ahead and post them now before we wrap things up. William RN says, is Lembit involved in any war game groups here in Ontario?
Currently in Ontario, no, I am not involved because I'm in a wheelchair, and for me to get anywhere is difficult. And so I usually have my friends come here to my home, and we play games here.
Okay. Well, and that's why you need the dog team.
Yeah,
Yep, just take you out, take
yeah.
you around the neighborhood there. So, well, good. But William, I guess you feel free to let us know if there's some game groups up there in Ontario, and let them know about this game, and that way, then they can get in on the Kickstarter. We had another comment here. Seraphin says, Steve, maybe an 1814 battle after I retire in 15 years. I don't know. I don't know if I think you said you were trying to wind down Against the Odds magazine here in another couple of years. So
I mean, I have to confess, I'm aging out, and hopefully I'll be here in 15 years, but perhaps
there
not.
you go. Well, so Seraphin, this is your big opportunity, they'll here in another couple of years, Against the Odds magazine will be for sale, and you can take your Deutschmarks and turn them into a fantastic publishing business there. So, and you won't have to pay the shipping costs to get your product from US to Germany. It'll be right there in Germany, I guess. So I guess that must be a problem for you, right, Steve? The mailing costs have gone up a lot.
They have. 15 years ago, a flat rate envelope to Europe was $14. Now it's up around $42 to $44.
Oh my gosh, that's
And
brutal.
a number of European countries have decided to, I guess, offset their budget deficits by taxing imports heavily between the VAT and customs fees and fees to collect the customs fees. It can get quite expensive for our international friends. We do have an agent that we've engaged who is going to import the magazines en masse to both the UK and the Euro countries in an attempt to cut down on the excess costs for our international participants. We don't have
Okay.
anything yet for Australia or Canada or Japan or anything like that, but at least for the UK and EU, we can help a little bit there.
Okay. Well, terrific. Well, gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and wind things down here. We've got a couple of folks here. Perry says, thank you for good interview, folks. And then Seraphin says, Lembit, thank you very much.
Oh,
So, yeah. Well, gentlemen, this was a lot of fun. I had a great time talking about learning a little bit about you and your backgrounds, and then also learning about this upcoming game. I'm excited about it. I'm already a backer. So you've already got my money. And so I'm looking forward to it. And then as soon as it shows up, everybody who's out there in my YouTube channel, you will see me do a unboxing and after action report and stuff like that, as I usually try to do. Let's see. Tim Zale says, I'm really looking forward to it. Let's see. Grim Harbinger says, dear God, that's extortion, shipping, evil shipping. Yes, yes. That is extortion, it sounds like, with them charging that much for postage. And then we've got James Bramber here. Maybe this will be the last word. He says, thanks for this. Looking forward to this game. So terrific. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. And if we have something else that looks interesting, we will I'd be more than happy to have you guys come out and do another presentation. Because I cover lots of Napoleonic battles, not just La Bataille, although I do a lot of stuff with La Bataille. So if you've got anything else going on, let me know. Be happy to share it with everybody. And Grim Harbinger says, thank you. Again, nice to see a battle that's fairly unheard of. Yep. There's lots of Napoleonic battles, and not a lot of them are covered. And William says, I appreciate the lower costs of ATA items here in Canada in contrast to other producers and retailers. So
I think he means ATO.
Oh, okay. I will take your word for it. So, oh yes, ATO, yes. As opposed, I'm like, what is ATA? Is that some sort of Canadian thing? I'm not sure. All right. Well, terrific. We'll go ahead and wrap it up there.
Thank you for
So
having
everybody
us.
out there, take a
Yes,
look
thank
in
you.
the comment section. If you have any questions and you're watching this, a week from now or 2 weeks from now or whatever else, go ahead, post some comments there, and Steve and Lembit will take a look at those from time to time and maybe answer. I'll try to answer as well I can any questions you might have, particularly if it's something generic La Bataille. And until our next episode, everybody, be well.
Take care.
All right. Take care, guys.